So I don't know if you can tell, but this particular miniature has more than one head. I actually cut off or sliced off a number of different Necron heads and glued them together, and then I gave it a fleshy arm as well. So I made this miniature out of an Imperial Guard. I was running out of Necron parts, and so I decided I wanted to use all of my bits and pieces, and so I just added a blade arm, just like in the Terminator 2 movie, you know, where he turns his arm into a blade. We decided to actually make a miniature just like that. So this is my brother going completely bananas. He decided to give it 3 arms. One is a robot arm and the other 2 are fleshy arms. On the back of it, it actually has the head of a space marine, and I think that was, we were running out of bits and pieces to stick to these things. It also has robot legs. There you can see the Space Marine head on the back, and the actual head on the bottom there is a Space Marine head that he's glued on to the base. So this is when I glued the top of a Necron head onto an Imperial Guard head, and I've used a lot of modelling clay to actually put flesh onto it. Taken most of it off the legs, used Necron legs for that, and used an Imperial Guard body. So this is the man, this is basically my Terminator. He's got those dark glasses, I've used an Imperial head, and the rest of it is pretty much just a Necron body and a lot of modelling clay. Definitely got to be one of my favourite miniatures, this one. This is the one that stands out for most people. You can see I've used pretty much all the bits and pieces from an Imperial Guard, and I only had little bits and pieces left over from my Necrons, and I glued them in place. I decided to just glue the front face of the Necron robot in place for this one, and I kind of think it looks quite cool. And the arm, I was thinking more in lines of Terminator 3, you know, that chick who can turn her arm into a weapon and blast things, so we decided to do that as well. So with this miniature, most of it is robotic, but what I did is I used an Imperial body and I cut the head off the Imperial Guard and put that on top, but I kept the lower half of the head from the Necron body so that it looks sort of like all the damage has occurred around the jawline, but the top half is left, and I used a lot of modelling clay. So this is supposed to represent basically a combination of the Terminator from the Terminator 3 movie and the Terminator 2 movie, and I've sliced off the side of the Necron head and glued it onto the Imperial Guard. Most of its legs are just robotic, and then I've used a lot of modelling clay again. So here again, what I've done is I've just used what pieces I had lying around. We decided to use an axe from a fantasy game and stick it on his hand, or where his hand was, and then just glue a gun onto where his arm was supposed to be, and it's basically just an Imperial Guard miniature. So this is another attempt where I tried to combine Imperial Guard and Necron pieces. So I've used part of the body and arm from a Necron, and the rest of it is an Imperial Guard, so it's sort of be fleshy, and I've given him some sort of mirrored glasses so he would look a bit cooler. So this miniature was a lot of work because I had to figure out how to combine different pieces, and I used a lot of modelling clay yet again. When I put this miniature together, I decided that this miniature should have pretty much all of its flesh. What I've done is I've taken out the body section where his torso is, and it's mostly just blood and spine from the actual robot innards. And then I decided that he was in a bad mood, and he had his gun pointing out, about to shoot somebody who had taken out his buddy because he's holding his buddy's skull in his hand. Another example of where I've used a Imperial Guard and just attached the bits and pieces I had left over from Necrons. It kind of looks a bit like a dwarf Terminator, really. So this is supposed to be a Terminator or Necron who has had his arm removed. And what I did is I used a body and part of an arm, and I took the hand off. If I turn it so you can see, you'll see he doesn't actually have a hand at all. We just glued what we had left in place. You have angered Arnie, and he has a grenade ready to throw at you. So this is basically my attempt at trying to be funny. I decided that because one of the Imperial Guard had a grenade, it kind of looked a little bit like he was trying to basically do the signal to say that they don't like you very much. So I was starting to get a bit silly here. This is yet another Imperial Guard, and what I did is I had the face is human in the front, and if I turn it round, you can see that the back of his head is actually a Necron face or a skeletal robot face. You might also be able to spot the fact that what I've done is I've tried to make him a little bit taller by giving him a bit of spine. I've used a bit of plastic and a bit of modelling clay to sort of indicate that he's lost sort of part of his stomach.